The first story is the old woman. There was a young man who lived with his mother in a house overlooking a public picnic area where there was a lot of movement, walking, and sports activities. One night, he had a frightening nightmare in which an old woman came to his room and tried to get him out of it. The young man woke up panting and went to drink water and then went back to sleep, but as soon as he fell asleep again, the same nightmare and the same old woman returned, and again she asked him to leave the house and follow her quickly, but he told her, in the dream of course, that the weather was cold, and here he woke up again and then sat for a while until sleep resumed seeping into his eyelids, so he went back to sleep. For the third time, he had the same nightmare, but this time the old woman was screaming forcefully, "Get out, you have to get out right now." In the dream, he followed her to the entrance of the house, but she was not there. He then woke up and found himself actually lying a few meters from the door of his room, with sweat pouring off him. He felt suspicious, so he turned on the television and sat eating some food until 5 in the morning, when he went back to sleep and did not have the nightmare again. 2 days later, the boy noticed police cars filling the place in front of his door. He was surprised and went to ask his mother about the reason for this unusual movement. She told him that the neighbors had found a 70-year-old woman dead among the bushes near the house, and she had been reported missing 2 days ago. The cause of death was a sudden heart attack. The second story is the clown statue. A family consisting of a father, mother, and 3 children lives in a large house containing a large number of different rooms. One night, the parents decided to go out to dinner and go to the movies, so they brought a teenage girl to be their child's babysitter during their absence. The father instructed the babysitter to put the children to bed and sit in one of the rooms of the house and watch television, then he and his wife went out, leaving the children getting ready for bed. After the couple left, the girl took the children to their beds and went to the TV room and sat watching it, but as soon as she entered the room she noticed a statue of a clown standing in the corner and she did not feel comfortable with it, as it was facing her while she was on the sofa and he was bothering her with his looks and his cold smile. She tried to focus and ignore him with all her might. But her annoyance reached an unbearable extent and she could no longer bear it, so she took the phone and called the father. "Sir, the children are in bed, but is it okay if I change the room? The clown statue really scares me." The father was silent for a few moments, then said seriously, "Take the children, get out of the house and call the emergency department." "What is going on?" the babysitter asked. "Just do what I told you right now, leave the house with the children and call me back as soon as you inform the police." She did what he told her to do, called the police, then called the father again and asked him with great astonishment what was happening. He answered her, saying, "We do not have a clown statue in our house." Then he explained to her that his children were always complaining about the presence of a scary clown watching them all the time while they were sleeping, but he and his wife did not take the matter into consideration, thinking that their children were experiencing nightmares and fantasies. As soon as the police arrived, they arrested the clown, who later turned out to be a homeless man dressed like a clown and entered the house in an unknown way. He ate the family's food and almost lived with it and watched the children at night when they slept. It was also difficult to discover him due to the large size of the house and the presence of many rooms in it, which helps him hide easily. The homeless person was in the room where the father asked the babysitter to sit, and it seemed that she surprised him by entering and did not allow him time to hide, so he stood in his place, pretending that he was a statue. There is another story that says that the babysitter and the children were killed by the clown, who turned out to be a criminal escaping from prison. So beware, dear reader, if you enter a house you do not know and find there a disturbing and suspicious statue, approach it but with caution. Throw something at it or tickle it with your hand, and prepare your other hand to defend yourself if it moves. The third story is pizza delivery. Sunset was imminent and the store was preparing to close its doors after a normal workday. The owner of the restaurant and one worker remained inside. While the worker was preparing to leave the fast food store where he worked, the reception phone rang and there was a customer asking for a piece of pizza to be delivered to his home. He went to tell his landlord. He ordered him to deliver this request and return to his home directly because the workday had ended and the store would be closed. It was 7:30 in the evening. The worker got into the car and turned on the GPS after recording the address of the customer's home and set off. After 20 minutes of driving, the GPS led him to an isolated house on the outskirts of the city. He entered an unpaved road and arrived at the house. He got out from his car, as darkness had fallen and the night had begun to close. He went to the door and rang the bell 3 times without receiving any answer, but suddenly he heard the sound of footsteps from inside the house. This sound began to approach. He was getting closer and closer until he reached behind the door and stopped. The pizza boy remained standing in his place and did not make another sound. "The pizza boy is behind the door," he said in a loud voice. Then he was surprised by an eye looking at him through the peephole of the door and felt that he was being closely watched. Then finally he heard a man's voice speaking to him from inside and asking him to go to the backyard of the house. After hesitating, the young man turned behind the house and headed to in the backyard. He found there a wide table with empty chairs around it, except for one chair in front of him. There was a man sitting on it, facing him in the back. The worker spoke to him, but he did not answer. The place was silent when he heard a voice behind him, "PSSST, here." He quickly turned around to find a man looking out from behind the wall and smiling. There were drops of blood on his face and his hair was disheveled. His appearance was very strange. The boy remained amazed and silent, until the strange man said to him, "Come with me, I want to show you something." The worker threw the pizza and ran away quickly until he reached his car. He got in, started it, and quickly drove away from the place. Later, when the police were called and investigated, the worker received a great shock after it became clear that that house had been abandoned for a long time and that there was no one in it at all. A few days after the incident, he came forward. The worker resigned from his job at the fast food store permanently and swore that he would never go to such places again.